Adam, good to see you here over a podcast studio.
Yeah, great to see you.
Yeah, we met in Atlanta, Georgia, which is where you are. Yeah, like a month ago, I think.
About a month ago. Where are you right now, by the way?
I'm in sunny Oslo.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, not always sunny here, but tonight it is. So I'm looking forward to this because for me, and I mean, would love to hear a bit about your background and of course also Bennett Graphics.
Sure.
But David Bennett, to me, is almost a bit of a legend, to be honest with you. When we went to the US the first time, we couldn't get the print place to work. And then we figured out that actually in the US, you don't use centimeters, which was why. So that's kind of the maturity we were at.
Yeah.
I think that was like 7-8 years ago. But David Bennett's name popped up everywhere. So I'd love for you to just introduce yourself and speak about a bit how it is to work with David and Bennett Graphics.
Sure. So I've been in the printing industry basically my whole life. My family had a printing company when I was growing up. And so, like my first job when I was in high school was, catching brochures off a folder in the bindery, taking them over to the shrink wrapper. So like,
And was that in Atlanta and Georgia?
It was in Atlanta, yeah. We actually sold the family business in 2007, I think, to Elanders. I moved on to another role and ultimately landed at Bennett Graphics in 2014. So I've been here for almost 10 years now in a number of different roles, right? Kind of just getting up to solving whatever problems need to be solved within the company. Which is a fun job to have.
Is it kind of like a COO role? And
no, my official title is VP of Business Solutions.
Okay, so, well, that's pretty broad title.
Yeah,
so it's a good.
It's like broad enough to kind of whether it's like working on gelato stuff, right, software stuff, and working with vendors and customers, to going out into the shop floor and working on like, hey, we want this machine to be operating faster, what's going on, and like kind of a lot more granular continuous improvement stuff. So every day is different for me, which is fun, right? It's what I like to do.
Would you agree? I mean, now you're with David Bennett, so of course you would agree, but it's kind of funny when you go to the US then almost a decade ago, but many people spoke about David Bennett Graphics. So
yeah,
how was it to work there?
I was recruited by a former coworker, former boss, Bill Gillespie, who had come to Bennett a few years ago, and he was sharing with me how great the company was and how exciting it was to be here and the various technical stuff they were up to at the time, and so came on board. I didn't know anything about David. I mean, I knew who Bennett Graphics was because everybody in the Southeast market has at least some awareness of that, right? So came down, met David. We came on a Saturday to interview with him, and we were looking at an Excel spreadsheet about some press time and stuff like that. And he was just super passionate about it and excited, and like, I love that stuff. And so we hit it off immediately. And ever since then, it's been just conversation after conversation about, what can we do next, and how can we get better data, and what action can we take off of this data, and it's a fun environment to work.
I mean, I'll admit that it's kind of impressive to get all that super excited over an Excel sheet. I mean, that's a good job. So coming to Bennett, like, what type of equipment do you have? What is your product? What are you producing? Tell us a bit about the layout.
When I got here, we were 70% offset and 30% digital, roughly. So our offset volume has grown, but not a lot as compared to the digital volume, right? So today we're about 70, maybe 75% digital, and the offset is still the same, right? Maybe a little bigger, but it's been the digital part that's really grown. And we saw it growing when we began, like, for us, adding programs, right? So mailing programs and working with customers to integrate deeply into their systems and make things easier for them. We had at that time when I came on an Indigo 7900 and an Indigo 10,000.
What year was that, Adam?
2014, when we added a mailing program that took a ton of volume on the Indigo 10,000. So we added a 12,000 to support that, and also add some flexibility to our mix so that we could do heavier substrates and synthetics and whites and things like that. So we added the 12. Eventually, when the Indigo 100K came out, we replaced our 10,000 with an Indigo 100K. We added labels to our mix about 7 years ago, and that's been a very fun journey as well. It's a whole different animal from the sheet fed background that I came from.
I think margins on labels, right? Good margins on labels.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
we have an Indigo 6800. It's the same press that we bought when we got into labels, and a finishing device and a JetFX on that. And we're doing a very substantial percentage of our business, greater than 10%, in a footprint that's like maybe 1,000 square feet. It's a really, really cool part of the business.
So it's been a lot of kind of change with a business that basically has flipped, right? From offset 70% to now digital 75%.
Yeah.
So in that kind of transition and journey, when was the first time you heard about gelato, and what went through your mind outside of the obvious first conclusion, which is ice cream? But
I wasn't as familiar with what we were up to when I first came on with gelato. We did some work 10 years ago. But
we did everything in centimeters.
Yeah, sure. Right. And so, maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I was reintroduced to gelato, through, our COO, Rick Bellamy. We've been talking about, gelato as a customer and also gelato as a software vendor, ever since then.
We met at this summit, Gelato Summit, in Sweden, which was like 2-3 months ago, I think.
Right.
And you came. What were your expectations? And then when you went back to the US, what had changed?
I didn't really have a lot of it. I didn't know what to expect coming out there, right? I knew we were going to talk about the software. I have had some ideas that I wanted to talk about and really meet the team, right? So I didn't really 100% know what I was getting into. What we've seen at Bennett has been this shift from transactional, hey, we need 1,000 pocket folders or 2,000 stitch books, to more and more of our business has been e-commerce and has been, a micro transaction, right? A quantity of one photo book or whatever the thing is. And so when I got to the conference and started listening to your presentation, it echoed and amplified everything that we had been feeling, but maybe not putting into words, right? About the direction that the industry is going, and the way print buying is changing, and ultimately how we have to adapt to enable that and make it be an even more powerful thing, right? So it was a very enlightened. I went home with a lot of energy.
Well, that's good. Although you never play the guitar, which is still, I know that you're a great musician. And so I wanted you to bring the guitar to the podcast, but I got a declination on that one. But if we think about after you left that conference, and if you would describe now what you know about gelato, we have entered into a partnership. We have started to roll out GelatoConnect. So at a very, very high level, how would you describe gelato now when you've seen it at play?
So the first time I saw it in our production, right, was our first day producing for Gelato, went out and like I wanted to learn how the software worked in production, so I went out and packed boxes, packed posters right alongside of the fulfillment crew to use it and understand it. And I was like initial take was blown away by how simple it was to use. Right, having an image like the QC check was something that we weren't really doing that way with our software that we were using, right? And so like having an image of the poster on screen and going, this is the one, yes, put it in the box and get a label. It was like, oh wow, this is really a buttoned up process. And it was, I think that was as a first glance was like, okay, this is something different.
We now have started to deploy GelatoConnect into Bennett Graphics. If we go to GelatoConnect procurement, and just to hear from your perspective, Adam, where did you come from? And now where do you see with GelatoConnect, where are you taking Bennett Graphics and your procurement system?
So from a procurement perspective, right, we were doing visual inventory counts in our system and marrying those up against what demand was going to be, and understand, like for boxes, for example, right, and understanding, okay, we've got this many boxes that'll satisfy this many orders. So we needed to have the tribal knowledge of, hey, this is how it's going to grow. This is how long it takes to get those boxes in. And today, using the procurement module, we get a push notification to say, hey, look, Gelato says you have this many left. You've consumed this much. This is the volume over the next X amount of days. Here's the turn time. You need to buy boxes today. You need to buy this many. As a going from like a visual inspection and tribal knowledge of how a thing works to just your purchaser getting a notification, hey, you need to buy this many today. It's a wild simplification of that process.
It's interesting because you started in Bennett Graphics 10 years ago. And one thing, if you go and you went into the procurement of the warehouse 10 years ago, how many SKUs did you have? And then you look at the creator economy, you look at online e-commerce, and what has happened during 10 years in terms of SKUs or stock kept units in an ordinary warehouse such as Bennett Graphics?
So it's far fewer SKUs than it used to be because we've focused on productizing our mix, right? So where we were, every job is totally unique, right? We had to have a lot of material on the floor and a lot of flexibility and a lot of institutional knowledge about how all of our equipment worked to produce those. And we've migrated more and more towards programs and products that are unique but consistent, right? So a photo book, right? Or a card or a postcard or whatever those things are. As our mix of work has changed, the products that we have to inventory and maintain have also changed to be more consistent and be a little easier to manage, right? Fewer SKUs. So today, right, we have 6 aisles of paper, right? And so we have condensed that in the past 3 years to 2 aisles. Right. So that we're now keeping much less than we used to because we don't have to anymore.
So let's move into workflow. And Adam, in this industry, in December, you will become really famous because you will launch your book about workflow at Inklish.
Yes.
In Copenhagen, which I will also attend. So, I mean, we're obviously speaking to a pro here in terms of workflow in this digital era. I'm curious to just, at an industry level, hear your summary about what do you see today that is the big challenge that we hear over and over again in workflows, and how come the industry ended up here?
What I hear over and over again is like every printer out there has this mismatch of different softwares and systems that they've pieced together, and the focus, like we spend so much energy on, let me integrate this piece with this piece, and I'm going to use InFocus Switch to do this thing over here and connect, and like those are all great, and some of it's very powerful software, but there's a lot of energy being expended to do all, to be able to kind of here's some of the future of gelato and being able to, no, this is all under one umbrella, right? There's no integration. We don't need to have some intermediary software do the pre-flight and then it come over here, and like it eliminates a lot of touch points, a lot of challenges. Like there's a lot of processes in our company that don't necessarily even deserve to exist, right? Software development, stuff like that it may not have to exist after you guys are done doing what you're doing.
What have you seen so far? Like, because one thing I see, McKinsey did this study for us and they interviewed 92 printers across the planet, and the average number of workflows was 4.2, and the average number of machine vendors was 3.5 in, doesn't that, or how does that correlate to Bennett Graphics?
Our number of machine vendors is higher than 3.5, and the number of softwares and workflows we have in place is higher than 4.2.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of variety of products in the building, from labels.
But isn't that summarizing the big challenge in this industry? Like, what other industry at this size operates with, in the case of Bennett Graphics, then how many machine vendors?
At least 6 or 7, 8.
So
at least 8 I can think of right now. I know it's more.
Okay, 8 machine vendors that you come up with now. And then how many softwares, workflows?
6 off the top of my head, maybe 7 right now.
So you have 8 machine vendors, you have 7 workflows. Isn't that a good summary of why this industry is really struggling with single-digit, low profit margins? And really, the inefficiencies that comes with those type of scattered both machine parks and workflows. I don't want to lead down a path here, but I cannot honestly think about a single other industry at this size that has this fragmented software landscape. What does that do to, like, at a very high level, not about Bennett Graphics, but at an industry level, what does that do to the operations of a printer?
So, it unnecessarily complicates everything, right? Where we don't, what we're good at is production, right? It's printing, finishing. We're a manufacturing company who, like every other printing company these days, has to dabble in some level of technology stuff too, right? So we're not a technology company or a software company, but we do have to have developers, people to do integrations, and people who are experts and APIs and all the other things. It's just a complicating factor, right? So we don't want to do that. We want to do what we're best at, right? We want to print, finish, ship, create new relationships with customers and shine in that regard. So all this other stuff, which, by the way, I enjoy doing, right? It's fun to work with software and talk about, hey, we could make this thing do something else, but like, it's not strictly necessary. What we want to do is print. So having all of those be under one roof would vastly simplify our lives.
And in your book that you've written now, what is the book about, and what would you kind of extract without letting it out of the box here? But what would you summarize the key highlights to be?
At a high level, right? It's about making all of these systems work together, and what kind of looking at business goals in conjunction with how do we make the business work, right? So like, if your goal is to condense pre-press workflows, right? Here's the steps you might want to take to do that, right? And a lot of the focus of those steps is about preparation, standardization, getting a standard created for everything you do, right? Whether that's an SOP or whether that's, hey, this
What
is
is an
a standard way of
SOP for the
standard
listeners?
operating procedure. Sorry,
Yeah.
or whether that's creating a standard way that estimates come in, so that you can take those and create a price and automate as much of that process as you can, right? It's ultimately, again, standardization, preparation, and navigating the various workflows in a printing company.
And when you take your book and you link it to GelatoConnect, what are your conclusions? What is it that you see?
The book is really geared towards, something that a owner of a printing company can read and go, how do I begin to approach automation and improving my workflows, right? That's really ultimately what it's for. Gelato is achieving a lot of the things that I talk about in the book, right? There's a lot of, hey, here's, again, pre-press is a great example of that, right? Like, nothing that goes through Gelato for us has pre-press labor involved in any way, right? It's all set up front. It goes through, we the first time somebody sees anything is on press. It's the press operator seeing, okay, I've got these sheets, they're going to go on this skid, right? It's a tool in an owner's toolkit, right? Just like a new press with new capabilities is, right? It's a way for your company to operate more efficiently and effectively, and hopefully at a lower cost.
And so in that double clicking on the workflow and in the production, what have you seen? What's your view if you would describe to a printer that has never heard anything about GelatoConnect? What, from your perspective, does it do in the actual production, replacing all the workflows, the 7 workflows you have today?
Printers generally, I feel like there's a big gap in especially the microtransaction e-commerce market, which is growing incredibly rapidly, right? Everybody that I know that is in this has very complicated software and they struggle to get into it. And it's a very intimidating thing to get into, right? We took our time and we're very deliberate about the choices we made here at Bennett. The software package that's now available makes that a lot less scary, and it's very much a plug and play solution to enter the microtransaction quantity of one world, right? That is, again, rapidly growing, is a huge part of Bennett Graphics' future, right? It's what we see is the biggest growth market that we have, and this enables that to become simple, instead of becoming complex and intimidating and challenging for a million reasons.
And do you see the applicability across the machine parks and across the products in GelatoConnect? And how has that surfaced from your perspective?
So we do. Today we're exclusively running Indigo products through it, but we are moving towards more inkjet web and labels, and so we see it being something that we can use everywhere in our building. As you know, we're 4 months into our integration, so the future is exciting and big.
So, Anon, let's go back and then double click on the improvements that you have seen in the workflow and the products that we are working with today within Bennett. If you put numbers on that, what is it that you have seen so far?
We've seen a substantial amount of waste reduction. With our the software we were using, we were at roughly 41% total waste for the year for positions, not for like percentage of the sheet used, right? So let's say we had a 12 up layout, right? 41% of those positions were wasted in the previous imposition that was available to us, right? So it was we use a rotary die cutter for cards, right? I'm thinking about one product here. We're using a rotary die cutter for cards, and those cards are imposed into lanes. So we pick up individual orders out of lanes. And if we didn't cross lanes with those impositions, if that makes any sense. So one order that was 300 pieces If the best batch that we could do because of SLA and other issues was 4 or 5 orders, well, if one was 300 and the other 3 orders were 20, 50, 30, whatever, the rest of those positions were blank. And so today under Gelato, we are actively using what we were referring to as a snake-based imposition, right?
Yeah.
Snake imposition. And so at the end of a run of a batch off of our machine, we grab each lane, stack them on top of each other, and now have a stack that has, at the most, right, in a 12-up layout, you might only have one card to round it out. So the most you're going to have is 11 pieces. So there's some other waste factors that happen in our mix, right, with how we're doing things. And so ultimately that 41% right now is sitting at about 10% waste year to date.
Okay, so basically 75% reduction.
Yeah. So when you're talking about multiple millions of those cards, right?
Yeah.
41% waste, if you're doing, let's say, 2 million cards, it's 3 million cards. You know what I mean? It's a huge number. It's more than 3 million cards. So with the volume that we're up to this year, in rough terms, we're talking about that being between 125 and 100 and maybe $35,000 just for that product, right? Because we do a high volume of that.
Just for that customer and that product, or
just that customer and that product? Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that makes us really happy to hear. That's good news.
It makes David very happy to hear.
And we like when David is happy.
Yes, we do.
And okay, so if we move into logistics, you have worked with our logistics team. Colin from Gelato has been there. I think you even got an access card, if I'm not mistaken.
He's in the other office right now.
Okay.
We need to put his name on the door, honestly, but he does have an access card as well.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. So when you think about logistics, what is it that the industry is faced with now? And what is it that you have seen from a GelatoConnect perspective that makes you really excited about where this partnership is going?
So there's a lot there. From the logistics module perspective, we're leveraging Gelato's buying power to buy shipping labels. One customer that Colin and I are working on right now, we expect to save 79 cents a package on their orders by moving to their work through Gelato and ultimately buying labels through logistics.
79 cents per package.
79 cents, yes.
And how many packages roughly per year?
Today we have, I think, 300 orders due.
Today, 300 orders.
So when that ramps up and we're in October.
Okay, so we're speaking about 100,000 roughly per year, or?
Probably a little less than that, but not much.
Okay, so that is like $70,000 on one customer just on packaging and shipping.
Yeah, but to be fair, that's a big customer, but yes.
Well, it's still interesting. If we then move into like your facility, Adam, you going into the packaging room, you compare today with a year ago, what has actually changed in the actual physical packaging process? And then also, what do you see in terms of cost reductions in the packaging and shipping part of your operations?
A lot of things have changed, right? From the way we handle our binning to the way that we're doing quality checks as we're scanning work through the Gelato app, right? So every time that you're scanning part of an order in, you're seeing a selection of those orders on screen and going, it's this one, right? So it's eliminating a big opportunity for errors to happen, right? Because you know that you have the correct piece in hand and you're getting the correct label because you've just identified the Norway poster and sure enough,
I saw that. Thank you.
Screen.
What an honor. Thank you.
The whole process has changed, right? That's a quality step that's significantly easier. It's basically ironclad. But it makes training new people, right? So we have a peak season, right? So we're bringing on tons of people to handle packaging and fulfillment for a few weeks. And so if your system to manage those orders is complicated to use, you're asking for trouble. You're asking for it. And we can bring somebody on and show them, hey, here's what you're going to do. You're going to take the next poster in line and you're going to scan it, and you're going to get a prompt that says, which one have you got? You're going to select the right one that you see in your hand. You're going to get a label and pack it. That's it, right? It's very fast to train those people. And so our ability to onboard people rapidly to do work is it's just much better, right? We don't need to bring them on a week before we actually need them to do any training, right? We can just, you show up and 10 minutes later, you're packaging in the Gelato app and you know what to do.
So it's actually also on top of just the software, two things that comes to mind here. It's the error reduction in the actual packaging process.
But both error reduction and ease of use, and also that, again, you have to train a lot of people during a peak season, and that can be very disruptive. And the easier the system is to use, the easier it is to do that. And right now it's very simple.
And then also actually saving a week of training for each new packaging personnel.
And you need less management for that, right? Because they're not doing a complicated task, and you don't need somebody standing over their shoulder and going, oh, no, you need to click over here in the third box. Like that's not a thing.
So let's say then you got the package, you got the label, and a carrier comes and picks it up. So what are then the cost savings from where you stand and from what you see, both in the packaging process, type of output efficiency, but then also when you from Bennett then ship it with one of our carriers, what happens there?
Again, we mentioned the 79 cents per package reduction for one customer. We're seeing just broadly, right? There's labor savings throughout our process, our material savings. And then when you add on to that, potentially saving a lot of money by who we're buying labels from and how, it's a very compelling overall big picture.
If you would estimate, Adam, the time savings today compared to the old system per package, is it 10, 30, 50%? Like, what do you think?
I can only estimate that it's probably in the realm of 20 to 25% more efficient. I think that's a reasonable estimation. That's how it feels when you're back there packaging, right? Again, it's a very straightforward process.
So that in a way is a 10, 25% labor reduction cost per parcel.
Yes, no doubt about that. Plus the onboarding time to bring somebody in and get them up to speed is significantly reduced, right? So regardless of the efficiency of the workflow, the time to understand that workflow is reduced.
And in the old world, how long time would you say the ramp up period for a new packaging team member? How long was the ramp up period?
A day to a couple of days, depending on the person and what specific part of the process they were in. So up to potentially a week to be like, no, this person's good. We don't have to worry about them. They've got it, right?
And then compared to today, what would you say?
10, 15 minutes.
Okay, that's also a huge improvement, going from 2 to 5 days to 10, 15 minutes. Yeah, okay. And so thank you for that. Like, if we zoom out and you think about 2025, from where you're sitting, just about to be, a famous author in this industry, releasing your new book now in Copenhagen, what makes you excited about like the industry at a very high level, and then more specifically in Bennett Graphics?
The amount of change that it's going through is exciting in and of itself, right? I mean, you're talking about this shift in how people are buying print from it being this old transactional model where I'm picking up a phone and calling my buddy Steve, who's a sales rep at such and such, and talking about a project, to so many of these are happening online, right? And so whether that's through a portal that somebody's built or through an e-commerce or whatever it is, the shift is happening. We're seeing the rise of it, as you shared, the creator economy and how that's impacting us. In fact, I was at a recruitment event at a local college, and looking for interns to train in project management for the spring and fall internships. And maybe 1 out of 3 of them had some little side business where they were selling posters on Etsy, or they were selling coffee mugs or hats or whatever on a Squarespace or a Shopify site, right? Well, they might not even conceptualize that that's coming to us. I mean, maybe not the hats and mugs because we're doing more paper goods, but a poster, a calendar, a photo book. I mean, those orders are getting routed to people like us, right? And so that's causing that's a shift, right? And all those kids are doing that. All 1 out of 3 of them was doing that, right? So you see these things starting to happen, and along come you guys, and you've got like this perfect software that we can plug and play in, and capture that business. It's cool. And on top of that, you've got all this change in what equipment is available to printers, right? So, digital technology is, as we all know, going to continue to get faster and better and faster and better, whether that's happening in inkjet web or on sheet fed devices. And so, that makes digital printing more and more powerful every day.
Yeah, it's it's just incredibly interesting. In our oldest daughter's class, 3 of the classmates actually went into building their own stores, moving into becoming creators and sellers online. It wouldn't have happened, I would say, 3 years,
Not
2 years. And one of our other children, he bought a T-shirt for his best friend for his 17-year birthday. Save water, drink more beer, it said. So that wasn't that good. But you would not have, like a year ago or 2 years ago, I don't honestly think that he would have gone to the creator economy, found his T-shirt, produced it in the batch of 2, and then we happened, which was complete coincidence. The creator was from Germany. We produced it here in the Nordics, and then shipped it to my son to give to his best friend. So it's just like the creator economy is coming from everywhere. And that's also what makes this partnership exciting. So when you think about GelatoConnect and Bennett Graphics, you think about 2025. If we have this call a year from today, what do you want to have seen happen inside Bennett Graphics? Or what do you believe?
What we are attempting to do right now is to push more and more and more of our work through the same workflow, right? We want to push more through Gelato and take our transactional work and productize that as well and send that through the same software, right? I mean, when you think about the processes that happen in your typical printing company, right? You've got estimating, project managers, a sales rep in the mix, going back and forth and delivering all this information, right? Like, we have all the information we really need to produce the job once we receive the specs, right? And so a lot of the simpler workflows are first candidates in that, right? Labels are a great example because they are a very linear workflow. So we want to begin sending as many of our standard products through the software as we possibly can, and capture more and more of that, and reduce administrative touch points, and ultimately reduce time to getting that product in a box and getting it in the customer's hands, right? Because every day that you're spending pre-flighting or you're creating a job ticket and carrying it out to is time that a customer doesn't have your product. And it's money, right? Ultimately, it's money. So we want to maximize the use of this software to the greatest extent possible.
But we're also speaking about next year moving into offset commercial work, which is, still a part of your business. And we've spoken about labels. So I think for me, there is no industry at the size of the print industry that is operating with so many parallel softwares. It just makes the end-to-end visibility really, really difficult. And I'm excited about where we're taking this partnership. Lastly, and just reflection, how do you feel it is to work with Gelato? Like if there is a printer sitting outside listening to this podcast, what would you tell them, Adam?
So like my first reaction after having worked with the Gelato team for just a couple of days was, I told Dave, I was like, I don't know how they hire these people. Like, why is this team so good? Just a great experience with things we need to change in the software being changed at like, hey, we made this change, and well, I asked for it Tuesday and it's Thursday. What do you made it? That's a kind of a real eye opener, right, for us when we started integrating was the speed at which operations were taking place and changes were being made. As we mentioned the snake imposition, right? As we were implementing that and testing it, the team was like every single day, like, hey, what's going on? What changes do we need to make? And coming back that day or the next day with those changes live in production for us to run. That's not a thing in any other software that I'm aware of that we use. So it's a very responsive team that has been so far extremely driven to help make us successful.
Well, and you pay the currency you pay in is then giving access cards to Gelato team members.
And I'm going to go make Colin buy me lunch here.
Well, so thank you so much for taking the time here, Adam, speaking to us and Gelato. We really appreciate this partnership. We've also learned a ton from you and the way you guide our team members and the product development. So we look forward to 2025 and then meeting in Madrid.
Same.
End of January.
Yes, exciting.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you so much.